Moonlight spills across a silent steppe. The camera drifts low over trampled grass, closing on a lone rider who reins in her horse at the crest of a ridge. Bronze scales on her armor catch the pale light, and a sleek bow rests across her lap. For 2,500 years, we were told she was just a myth. Tonight, you're about to discover she was absolutely real. What if I told you that some of the fiercest cavalry archers in the ancient world weren't men at all? What if an entire sisterhood of elite warriors has been hiding in plain sight, their story buried by centuries of bias and misunderstanding? By the end of this video, I'll show you the single artifact that's forcing historians to completely rewrite what we thought we knew about ancient warfare. Before Marvel movies and Wonder Woman, ancient Greek storytellers spun tales of Amazons. These were dreaded warrior women who supposedly clashed with heroes from Troy to Athens. Most modern scholars just shrugged it off. I mean, where were the bodies? Where was the armor? Where was any real proof beyond some colorful pottery and epic poems? And let's be honest, those same Greek vases also showed centaurs and cyclopes. So naturally, historians figured the Amazons were cut from the same cloth of pure fantasy. Makes sense, right? Well, here's where things get interesting. Picture this. It's 1993 in Pokrovka, southern Russia. A team of archaeologists is cracking open an ancient burial mound called a kurgan. Nothing unusual so far. But inside, they find a teenager, barely 16 years old. Bronze-tipped arrows are still sitting in her quiver. A compact iron sword lies across her chest. And when they X-ray her bones, her thigh bones are thick with riding muscle. The lead excavator looks at his team and says something that would echo through archaeological circles for decades. If this is a boy, he was buried with women's jewelry. If this is a girl, history is about to get very loud. DNA testing confirmed it. She was a girl, a teenage warrior girl who lived and died on horseback with weapons in her hands. But here's the kicker. Her grave wasn't alone. Since that discovery, more than 70 burial mounds from Ukraine all the way to Mongolia have revealed female skeletons. Armed female skeletons, armored female skeletons. Some with battle scars that never healed, others literally riddled with arrowheads. Are you ready for this statistic? 1 in 5 Scythian warrior graves now turns out to be a woman. 1 in 5. Now, before we go further, I need you to understand what life was like out there on the Eurasian grasslands. This wasn't ancient Greece with its settled cities and rigid social roles. This was a world where every child learnt to ride before they could confidently walk across a room. Survival depended on hitting a rabbit at full gallop while your horse thundered across uneven ground. On the steppe, your bow wasn't just a weapon. It was your grocery store, your security system, and your status symbol, all in one. When gender lines blur under the hard edge of pure survival, who really has time to debate whose hands should draw which bowstring? The Greeks called these people Scythians and Sarmatians. They spoke early Iranian languages and carved their stories in movement rather than stone. And those mysterious Amazons the Greeks placed beyond the Black Sea, they were actually describing these nomadic peoples, though they clearly didn't understand what they were seeing. Let me paint you a picture of what a typical day might have looked like. Let's call her Izara. Dawn breaks over her felt tent, and she's already moving. She pulls on a jacket made of layered leather scales, ties her hair back in 2 practical fighting braids, and carefully checks each arrow. Every single one has been lovingly crafted to spin true through the air. Breakfast is dried Mars milk and the latest gossip about a neighboring clan that's been pushing into their pasture. Not good news. She mounts her small but incredibly hardy steppe pony, gives a sharp whistle that sends the entire herd towards fresh grazing, and settles in for what she hopes will be a quiet day. By noon, the scouts are back with troubling news. Those trespassers aren't just grazing their animals, they're armed and looking for a fight. Without any debate or lengthy war councils, the entire camp transforms. Every able-bodied person, male and female alike, becomes cavalry. And here's where things get really interesting. Their secret weapon wasn't just superior horsemanship or better bows, but something called the Parthian shot. Picture this. You're a heavily armored Greek soldier, confident in your bronze armor and your tight formation. Suddenly, these nomad warriors seem to retreat. You give chase, thinking you've won. Then they twist around in their saddles while still riding at full speed and put an arrow straight through your throat. Those heavy Greek infantry units, chained to their shields and foot formations, found themselves getting picked apart from directions that seemed to defy the laws of physics. But Isara didn't just rely on her bow. She also carried a short iron sword, perfect for slashing at knee height in a blur of hoofs and dust. And the wounds on these ancient skeletons tell us everything we need to know. X-rays reveal healed fractures on women that are identical to those found on male warriors. Collarbones smashed by spear shafts, ribs that fused back together after being punctured. These women didn't just decorate battles or cheer from the sidelines, they survived them. So if all this evidence was literally lying in the dirt waiting to be discovered, why did history politely ignore it for so long? The answer comes down to two powerful filters working together: Greek propaganda and Victorian bias. For the ancient Greeks, Amazon stories served a very specific purpose. They were like mirror monsters, a warning about what happened when you turned the natural order upside down. Greek vase painters loved showing triumphant heroes standing over fallen warrior women. The message was crystal clear: Greek patriarchy good, foreign female warriors bad and scary. Now, fast forward to the 19th century, when archaeology was just getting started. The field was dominated by Victorian gentlemen in waistcoats who had very firm ideas about gender roles. When they cracked open these burial mounds and found skeletons with weapons, they automatically wrote down male in their notes. Full stop. End of discussion. If they found jewelry next to the skull, they'd just shrug and call it ritual objects. One museum curator actually labeled a clearly female pelvis as belonging to a small-boned man anomalous. The bones couldn't exactly argue back. But then, something amazing happened. The 1980s brought us much better osteology. Scientists learnt to read pelvic angles, sciatic notches, and cranial sutures like a book. Suddenly, all those old cases started shouting new truths. And in the 2000s, DNA testing made the verdict absolutely final. The Amazons stepped out of legend and straight into the pages of Nature Journal. Yet, here's the frustrating part. Many school textbooks still haven't caught up. Pick up a random history book today and it'll still mumble something vague about mythical female warriors. The inertia of old ideas is like a heavy shield against new evidence. But we're changing that, one video at a time. And if you want to be part of that change, hit that subscribe button now, because we're just getting to the best part. Remember at the beginning when I promised to show you the single artifact that's forcing historians to completely rewrite what we thought we knew about ancient warfare? Here it is. In 2019, an excavation near the Don River unearthed something extraordinary. A gilded iron arrowhead fused to a delicate bronze mirror. The back shows a stag leaping towards the rising sun. Scholars believe this was a personal talisman, not about vanity, but about identity. A constant reminder that the warrior on horseback was still, at her core, a woman responsible for protecting her clan and their way of life. A weapon and a mirror, both buried in the same right hand. That single image silences even the loudest skeptic. So what do we actually gain by acknowledging these truths? First, we rescue real human beings from being dismissed as cartoon characters. These weren't mythical creatures, they were real people with real lives, real families, and real struggles. Second, we expand our definition of what's possible. When young people today see themselves reflected in every corner of history's story, it changes what they think they can achieve. And third, we remind ourselves that the past isn't some dead museum piece gathering dust. It's a living conversation, always open to new evidence and new interpretations.
Just imagine textbooks of the future showing the Battle of Marathon not just as a clash between Greek men in bronze armor, but as a complex battlefield where swift horsewomen might have prowled the flanks, changing the entire dynamic of ancient warfare. Azara's story doesn't end in the ancient past. Jump to 1943 and meet Ludmila Pavlichenko, the Soviet sniper who recorded 309 confirmed kills. Flash forward to Syria today, and you'll find Wada Khani, a Kurdish commander leading mixed-gender units against terror groups. The tradition of women in combat was never a myth. It just took a very long detour through centuries of bias before we were ready to recognize it again. Some historians now think the whole Amazon legend started as garbled field reports. Picture Greek mercenaries witnessing Scythian women carrying bows and arrows. Lacking any cultural context, they filed them under "scary tribe of warrior women." That label got passed down through generations of storytelling until it mutated into pure myth. Others point to fascinating linguistic clues. The ancient Iranian phrase ha-mazan might mean warrior, which Greek merchants could have easily mangled into Amazon. It's like a 2,500-year-old game of telephone that completely changed how we see the past. But underneath all the scholarship and etymology, there's a simple truth. Courage isn't limited by biology. When arrows darkened the sky and survival was on the line, steppe tribes needed every hand steady and every eye sharp. Necessity shaped their culture more than any abstract ideas about gender roles. Look back at that opening image, the lone rider silhouetted against the moon. She's not some fantasy invented to entertain bored sailors in ancient Greek ports. She rode across real grasslands, laughed in real tents, and probably died with dirt under her fingernails and sun damage on her cheeks from a lifetime spent outdoors. We failed her memory for centuries. Tonight, we're returning her name to the roll call of the brave. Here's what I need you to do. Share this story. Send it galloping further than any ancient arrow ever flew. Drop a comment telling me what other mythical parts of history you want us to investigate next. And if you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, you'll be the first to ride out when we uncover the next buried truth. Because trust me, there are plenty more stories like this waiting in the dust of time, and together we're going to dig them all up.